What you see online doesn't represent what everyone thinks. It's very easy to be taken aback and offended and triggered by posts and videos and memes that you see online, because it feels like everyone in your world and everyone in the world has issue with something that you are focused on. And this is due to the algorithms that social media uses to show you what they think you would want to see. So let's take Facebook, for example. Facebook owns Instagram, so it's the same thing, but any social media would do. They get money by showing adverts to you. So the more time you're on their site, the more money they get. So it's in their best interests to keep you coming back to the site and staying on the site as long as possible. That's a win for them. So how do they do it? They track what you spend time watching, engaging with, and just observing, right? What keeps you on the site as long as possible. So every time you engage with something, every time you watch the video, the longer you watch the video, the more you share it, the more you see those kinds of posts, yeah? So let's say you see a post about International Women's Day, right? And someone's arcing up about it, going, well, what about International Men's Day? And then there's this whole feminist men's right activist back and forth, right? And that engages you. The next day, you're going to see way more posts about those topics. And then they'll engage you more, and then you get suckered in. And so the algorithms feed you more and more and more. And it's not just from pages, it's also from your friends, the friends of yours. Let's say you've got 150 friends on Facebook. The ones that are talking about those topics are the ones that Facebook are going to show you. And so you're seeing your friends, you're seeing the pages you follow. All you're seeing on your feed is things that keep re-triggering you about that issue. Let's say you're into vegetarian and veganism, or you go the other way and you're doing keto or carnivore diet. That sort of stuff will keep popping up and keep re-triggering you. Same thing for any topic. The reason being is you're spending your time watching, looking at, and observing those things. So they keep getting shown to you. This is why people like myself will say, hey, like this video, by the way, like the video, because you get to see what we're doing more, because it engages you. It says to the algorithms, hey, this person you want to see this person, right? The problem with all of this is that if you're not careful, it can get to feel like the whole world is talking about your topic. You know, if you dislike or love Trump, you're going to find that every single person is talking about Trump in your feed for some reason. But if you step back, if you actively go through and search through your friends and look at what they're actually posting, you'll see that the vast majority of posts are about irrelevant stuff that you don't really care about. And unsurprisingly, you're not being shown it. Every so often, the algorithm will show you a post from a random friend that you haven't seen posts for a while. Because what they're doing is they're sprinkling that randomness in to think, hey, do you like this? Do you like this post? Do you like this post? Do you want to see this post from this person? And if you do engage with it, they'll start showing you more of that posts. So I've got a friend who I think is quite funny, and this friend posts a lot of funny stuff. So unsurprisingly, I see this friend's posts almost every single one, right? But then other friends that are on Facebook, I don't see any of. And it's not because I don't like them, it's just because Facebook hasn't shown them to me. And when I do actively search for this person and like click a few and engage with a few, then Facebook starts showing me that person more. Why this is important. If you've got a trigger topic, you know, for me, I talk a lot about mental health, mental illness, suicide prevention, childhood trauma, that sort of stuff, right? So they're the sort of posts that get shown to me a lot. So then I'm seeing story after story after story of those sort of posts. And it can get overwhelming because it can feel like all anyone ever is talking about is mental health stuff. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a massive population of people that are talking about it and do need to talk about it, and that's why I'm talking about it. But it can get quite overwhelming where it seems like every single person that I know and that in every single group that I'm a part of are all depressed, are all struggling with mental illness, or have all been traumatized as a child, right? It's overwhelming, and that can get quite depressing until I step back and realize, oh, wait a second, this is what the algorithms are showing me. So one thing I like to do is, number one, be aware of the fact that I'm getting forced into a sort of echo chamber of what I'm observing. The second thing I like to be aware of is looking at my real life, or I suppose social is part of real life, but external to social media, offline life. When I'm talking to people in my real life, what are they talking about? What are they focusing on? What's their major issues, right? And to those people, you know, it's generally a cross-section of society. So they're not all focused on my trigger issue or any trigger issue, right? Some of them will be talking about veganism and vegetarianism. Some will be talking about politics. Some will be talking about mental illness. Some will be talking about women's rights, etc., etc., etc. That's what is happening, and that's what's real in my world. Because there's this other thing that I've seen happening is that people will feel like the whole world is believing or is a certain way, but they don't compare that to what's happening in reality. So let's say there's been a spate of terrorism attacks, or a spate of violence against women, or a spate of suicides, or, you know, any sort of crime, any sort of bad thing. Then they start to believe that the whole world is like that because, once again, it's being shown to them on social. But what they fail to do is look at what's happening in their world. You know, when they go outside, are they, their own little world, are they actually prone to that topical issue, right? We evolved in small groups, small bands of like 150 primates, right? So it's very hard to hold the wherewithal and the ideas and the social structure of more than 150 or something like that people. It's just hard to keep that information in. That's what we've designed to do. But now we're exposed to billions of people online, and, you know, the news cycle and social media is pushing all this information into us. So it can feel the world can feel disproportionately bad because we're hearing all of this bad news all the time. But that's not the reality of the situation. You know, I could turn on the news and hear about a war in one country and violent crime in another and tsunamis in another. But when I go outside, I see a sunny day and somebody walking their dog in complete peace. That's my reality. But if I let the news in and let the social media push the negativity in, I could easily feel afraid to go outside into my safe suburban life, right? Now, don't get me wrong, some people are genuinely living in terrible circumstances. I've lived through terrible stuff myself. So there are people that will be listening to this that are generally struggling, right? But your struggle will be specific types of struggle. It won't be the world's struggle. If you're in a war zone, that's terrible, right? But those struggles are different to someone else's struggles who's facing racism, to someone else's struggles who is facing sexism, someone else's struggles who's struggling to pay their bills because they can't afford it, to someone else's struggles who's being oppressed by the law, to someone else's struggles that's, you know, whatever the issue is. You're not facing every single problem all at once. You might not be facing any problems, and yet it can feel like we're facing all of these problems, and it's very easy to take it on. And the other thing that it can happen is if you start viewing the world through a echo chamber lens, if you start believing that every problem, like that the world is in one particular problem, you'll start seeing that problem everywhere and sort of overcompensating or trying to sort of, well, I think the world is based on what I've seen on social, and I could sort of interpret this neutral or ambiguous event to fit that typecast. You know, if you see someone acting in a particular way, you want to try and fill the boxes. You want to try and answer the question, what are they doing? And if the media or social media or the news is saying, hey, a person that is like that is doing this sort of thing, is acting like that, it's very easy to fill in that box when you don't know what they're doing, right? I would strongly advise that everyone should take a step back and detach if they find themselves being suckered on social media. I would strongly advise that people should start meditating, because it allows you to step back and detach and go, well, how do I actually feel about this? It allows you to notice the triggers that will be happening every time you see one of these news stories. I quit watching the news, as in the news cycle, years ago, and my mental state has improved because of it. I would suggest you do so as well. I'm not saying to disengage from the world. I'm just saying to guard your mental state at all costs. If you like this video, please head over to my website at zachary-phillips.com. From there you can see my blog, podcast, other videos, and my books. And if you like, you could also support what I'm doing here on Patreon, GoFundMe, or through my merchandise. Head down to the link below, zachary-phillips.com, and follow me on social media at Zachary P. Phillips. Catch ya.